So yeah, so I made some new friends at the dungeon, friends with dogs, which is awesome. And then what was it? Yesterday, day before, I met a new partner, potential partner, sugar daddy partner, who's a little on the kinky side, but also a little. I feel like he's got some repression in there, so hasn't been able to really explore his kink as much as he would like. Um, you think you'd feel that, Swinny? What's that? Has he done anything kink related before, or just interested in it? He has done some kink stuff before, but I think that he considered it to be in the realm of sex play and not necessarily like BDSM, like negotiating and going through like the proper stages of having a BDSM relationship. I think it's just been more like kinky sex type stuff. Um, he's not a masochist or a sadist, so that's like not in his realm. And he definitely has some off ideas about what kink is. So, for instance, he said um, BDSM stands for bondage, discipline, sadism, and masochism, um, but it doesn't say anything about power exchange. And I was like, that's not really how it goes. So, um, just because the letters represent certain words doesn't mean that it doesn't include power exchange. So what's the other play, workout, other partner count up to now? So I have my workout partner, and so this other person would be my third partner. You have master, and then the workout partner, and then this third partner. So 60 level 69. Nice chatter. The DS also stands for dominance and submission too. Yeah, then that's not something that he understood. He was going by what someone else had told him, and then that was their opinion, was that power exchange is not included in BDSM. And I'm like, "Nope, that's wrong." So, there is some exploration and teaching that needs to go along with it, and one of the things, actually, the one of the first things that I am going to teach him about, um that have just learned myself today. Today. Yeah, mostly today. He he definitely seemed more open to understanding more. Yeah, he seems to be pretty fascinated with everything. And I think more that he's just really happy to have someone validating his kink, and not. I think he has a lot of trauma from being rejected in his kink and sexuality, like many of us have. So I think that it's going to be it'll be fun exploring with him. The only problem is, is that he doesn't live here. He lives in Hawaii. So I met him here. He was in town for a family function, and I yeah, heck of a commute, right? Um, so I'm not sure how that's all going to work out, because that makes things a little difficult. My workout partner was kind of excited about having a how good of a swimmer am I? Not that good, that's for sure. um, he was excited that I might be doing kind of a long distance thing, because that means that I would be taking more sex pictures and more selfies and pictures of myself. And I don't send him really anything. I don't send my workout partner any kind of. I mean, I will occasionally, like, but not anything risque, I guess. I mean, it's very rare for me to send a picture of myself, period, to anyone. And so he was really excited at the thought of um, me being required to, not required, but feeling obligated to send pictures um, to a new person. because then it might bleed over into me sending some of those pictures to him. So he does. He wants to be CC'd on it, definitely. So we'll see how that goes. But I was saying that the thing I was researching today, that this new partner brought up, uh, guy, you said it's a plus side to long distance. Yeah, definitely. That's Master and I, we used to do every day. Had to send him a picture of myself every day in whatever outfit it was that I was wearing to get his approval. Uh, yeah, we did that for several years until we started living together. Um, Even after? Oh, because you work different hours. I guess that's true. Yeah. So it's kind of fun in that regard. And actually, that was something that I had thought about doing with patrons too. Was kind of doing a like a basically like me pretending that uh my patrons were like a long distance relationship, and then I would send pictures, and it would be more of a reason for me um to take stupid pictures of myself because I hate doing it. Hi, Daciana. Huh. Birds are noisy out there. What were they saying? Oh, right. So, how do you end a relationship? Because that was his question. Was he's hesitant to get involved in a relationship because it's so difficult to get out of a relationship once you're in it. And of course, BDSM kinksters have a an answer to that, as- assuming that everyone is mentally healthy and acting as adults and being I guess just in their right mind, because ending a relationship can be, I mean, it can be a train wreck. That's generally how my endings of my relationships have gone. Um, you see the train wreck coming and you can't avoid it. It's just, it's there's no switching tracks once the train is starting to crash. Is how it feels in a vanilla setting. And I think that BDSM, we have different ways of dealing with that. Um, Master said, actually, we were talking about it earlier, and he says that one of the most basic ways of doing it is just to put a time limit on it. And then when the time is up, then you reevaluate things. Um, Swinny, you've done that. You got the t-shirt. What's that, Master? A time limit on the relationship. Yeah. Um, but the problem with that, and Master came up with, and I kind of agree with him, is that it can really limit your growth as as a um a couple, because if there's a time limit on it, then the how was it that you put it, Master? What did you say? He's so much more eloquent than me.
If a contract has a time limit, like in this instance, not like a training contract, but just like a relationship contract, it's far less likely that people are going to become invested in it and treat it more as a throwaway situation instead of what it should be, which is a relationship in which you're learning and experiencing and growing. If at the end of 6 weeks or 3 months or whatever the time limit is, people like the people in the relationship are like, I could not imagine another second if you're not around, and both of them are, then that's a great thing. But how do you get to that point if both of you are operating under the premise that at the end of 3 months, well, is this going to keep going forward? Was that eloquent enough?
Yes. Thank you, Master. Chatter said, "Yeah, true. It might make people keep walls up so they don't get hurt at the end, knowing it'll end if they get attached." Yeah, I agree. Which, I mean, that's hard to break through people's walls, anyways. I have noticed that with submissives tend to be easier to get past their walls than dealing with tops, but I think that might just be the people that I've played with and my own experience of being a bottom. Because as soon as I met Master, I was like, I love you. Let's stay together forever. And I tore all my walls down, which worked out for me, but that's not something that he did with me. I mean, he had a lot of walls up um, for a long time and still does, quite frankly. I see him. I'm going to break down those walls and it'll be glorious. That's from the other guys.
Inconceivable!
You've heard this a few times now.
Guy.
There he goes. Oh, negotiate what will happen if someone wants to end the dynamic before it starts. That's what I was thinking too. Yes. Negotiate your exit strategy before you even come into it. Dino. Hi, Dino. We're talking about exit strategies. Chatter said, I've heard this a few times now.
Yeah, anyway, we're in love.
Master hasn't played with the soundboard ones yet that I've made. You can pop it out. There's a keystroke for it. I think it's control and comma is the keystroke. Where's the door? That's what we're trying to figure out is when you start a relationship, how to include an exit strategy in that so that it's not so people don't get stuck, trapped in a relationship that they don't want to be in. Chatter was saying, I've heard this a few times now. I think it'd be really hard to think about, but it's an interesting idea to have steps planned out to help the situation if it happens. Yes. And on that note, I went to Reddit and did some looking up to see what people recommended, and it took me a bit to find it. But what somebody recommended was, well, it's called conscious uncoupling in the vanilla world. But I think that also works for BDSM, conscious uncoupling, which did you get kicked out, Master? Oh, okay. Okay, hold on a second. I gotta blow my nose. Chatter, you've heard of that before? Conscious uncoupling. It's sounds like a much saner way of breaking up with someone. So, what they recommended on Reddit is basically like a titration schedule, like weaning somebody off of you. Especially with BDSM, because you can go from having, your daily rituals and your daily things that you do with this person that all of a sudden everything's gone, like they just ghost you or your relationship is over, and then everything that you've been doing up until that point, all of a sudden you're not doing it anymore. That's really that can be really hard on someone. So what they recommended was step one partner announces their intention to discontinue the relationship or dynamic, ideally face to face or in an audio conversation. They set out the steps that'll be involved in this process, an end date by which the process will be set out, and it should take no longer than 14 days so as to focus their efforts and not drag things out painfully. Which I thought that was good. Especially in a power exchange, be a big shock to the system just to end it. Yes, exactly. Step two, they said reflect on the things that you've learned together and the way you've changed for the better because of them. I think that is really important to keep your focus on what the things that you've gained from this relationship instead of dwelling on all the things that are that have been hard and horrible and make you want to break up. Keeping that as your focus instead of um, focusing on the negative. And then step 3, give feedback to each other regarding what was working and what they should look for in their next partner. For example, you like receiving pain more than I like to give it. I would emphasize this when you're trying to tell your next partner, or you're great at XYZ. I'm sure you can find someone who would really enjoy that. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Interesting. So that you leave the relationship on a positive note. Um, that it's okay to say, you know, that either you've drifted apart or you have decided to go in a different direction, or this thing that you thought that you wanted ends up being not what you wanted, or you're just not into it anymore. Um, but to negotiate these things up front, I think is the key. Um, the guy who said the titration part,
Part of an outplacement program. We're not picking up your option.
going in a different direction. It's harder when an exterior force is involved. What do you mean? Like if someone is trying to break you up, or like just circumstances are making it too difficult to stay together, kind of a thing? Oh, Dino, yeah, I guess it relates to my thoughts begin with the end in mind. Yeah. Well, you figure I mean, even like Master and I, when we first started, our exit strategy was that as soon as this stopped being fun for the both of us, that would be it. We would only do it while we were having fun with it. And that if it got to the point where either of us was not having fun, that would be our signal to end things. So I feel like we kind of had a little bit of a exit strategy there, but I like having like a structure of like, this is, step 1, sit down, you have a conversation. Step 2, you reflect on the things that were great, and give feedback. I think that that's a really kind way of forcing someone out of your life. Chatter said, I've heard someone talking about this and they recommend either having a particular spot in the house where you can stand, or a particular word. And when you stand there, say that word, that means you need to move on. You need to move into that phase and start to slowly reduce protocols until it ends. Yes. Oh, Dino. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So dependence and codependence matter. Ending is much more difficult when either exists in the relationship. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because if somebody is if you're in a codependent relationship, then it makes extracting yourself that much more difficult, because you need the other person or they need you, and then what do you do if you break up? I feel like that in my first marriage, um, because when I left, I had nothing, and I was literally living in a trailer, with no heat in the middle of February and no food and like starving. And it was a choice that I made. I'd rather starve and than continue to be in the position that I was in. But it definitely was a very dependent relationship because all of my finances were um, basically confiscated at that point. So I think that it's a different than like you would normally think, like with a prenup, um, having an exit strategy. I think it's very different because you're not talking about dividing resources. Um, I think it's more about making sure that everyone is whole when they leave the relationship. Yeah, at the beginning, know how you would continue on your own. Absolutely, I think that that's really smart. And I think that there are relationships in which one person has a greater need than the other, um, and quite possibly well, a greater dependency. Um, I think that those types of situations need to be taken with great care, and those types of circumstances are I think that in those types of situations, maybe the 14 days wouldn't be enough. Like maybe you'd need to have a little bit longer exit strategy. Or like if you're living together and you have to like split up all of your stuff, maybe a longer exit strategy um, would be appropriate. Chatter said that's something I've heard negotiated with us too, having it negotiated from the start, a base agreement of finances to know when it ends. Both people will be basically okay on that side before feelings get in the way of that decision. Make sure both people will be okay if it dissolves. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's smart. Nobody wants to think about the end when they're at the beginning, but I think it is really important because all relationships end one way or another. It's either a breakup or a death, and both of them kind of feel like a death. Were you gonna say something, Master?
Life. Nobody makes it out alive.
That's true. Yes, they're gonna get you in the end. Not to sidetrack, but you think you're gonna head out soon? Okay. No worries, guy. If you're really codependent, maybe cutting down to some basic rules between you so it's not cold turkey too. If your whole life is master slave, helping each other not be as codependent before just leaving, as long as you're still amicable. And that could be helpful and less traumatic thing too. But both people would have to be on the same page and not one thinking that they're going to keep the dynamic going. Yes, I agree. And I I think too that that's having that in place beforehand would be helpful with that type of thing too. Um, with the titration, um, they talked about the basic DS structure without sexual or physical components. So you would like keep the DS going, but you would remove the sexual components from them. So maybe like if you had a ritual of sending a picture every morning, and a picture every night, like maybe those pictures wouldn't be sexualized. Maybe it would just be a kind of an emotional check-in instead of a, what's what butt plug are you wearing today kind of a thing.
Thank God.
So you take that, you make it a little less personal, a little less intimate.
I thought you were going in a different direction
What,
with that.
what were you thinking, Master?
More like eunuch.
Oh, like eunuch?
Yeah, start removing the sexual components from them. I was like, wait, wow, that escalated quickly.
We're breaking up. I need to remove your sexual components.
We're done and you're done.
Yeah. More of a friendship check-in, but still the routine. Yes. So it's not so abrupt. And so it's not just like their entire world is falling apart all around them. No, it would be a more of a titration. I think I just like the word titration too, if you didn't notice. Dino said it could be as easy as starting with who we want to be post relationship. Oh, okay. Night, guy. We'll see you next week. Have a good week.
You've done this before.
That's Adam's family, yeah. That's Morticia Adams on the rack. Ah, you've done this before. I swear, Adam's family probably started a bunch of kinksters off. Yeah, I like that too, Dino.
Yeah, it wasn't the Marquis de Sade. It was Adam's family.
Well, most people, I would think, in this day and age would be more familiar with the Adams family than they would be with the Marquis de Sade. Just saying. Oh, one party might say, I don't think I could see you in a dungeon post relationship. Oh, yeah, that's true too. Especially with it being such a small world, people do run into each other um, at the dungeons. Even here in Portland, and we've got 4 or 5. It's still you have to sometimes you have to coordinate a little bit, particularly if the other party is your parent. Not saying that you're breaking up with your parent, but just that you don't want to go to the same dungeon as your mom. Is what I'm saying.
I can attest to that.
That's true. Master's mom is very kinky. She took him to his very first Munch, in fact. Dino, I guess that depends on who you are. MK, some of us lean more to the marquee. That is true. Yes. Pop culture wise, I think that Adam's Family wins, though. You've heard of someone going to the same Munch without knowing? Oh, with their parents? They just showed up and there's their mom. I think going to a Munch with your parent would be way more uh it would be easier to swallow than it would be just to go to a dungeon and see like there's your mom up on the rack making Morticia Adams sounds.
No, no,
What,
no.
Master?
Going to a Munch with your parents, mom or dad, or either one or both or whatever, is way easier to do than showing up to the Munch and then finding your parents already there. You're like, what the fuck?
And not knowing that they were kinky to begin with.
Yeah. They somehow managed to snow you the entire 18 years you were growing up.
Oh, that's what happened to that person? Oh, okay.
Yes. You can call your therapist and set everything else aside. You have a whole different thing to discuss now.
Huh. Except for they were there first and their parents walked into the Munch. They couldn't hide. Ah. See, I think that would be awesome. I would be like, "Oh my god, you're here! That's amazing!" Of course,
You're completely full of shit.
you think that I would be upset if I walked in and saw my kid at the Munch?
I'm thinking of your mom at the Munch.
Oh. Okay. Yes. I could. Okay. That would be weird. I was thinking like as the mom going there and seeing my children, but at being the child and seeing my mom, who I know is not into kink, that would be. They do, yeah, they do know I'm kinky. That's part of the problem.